There's something so endearing about seeing Titans of the Tide show up to the front doorstep that is my Gmail account. I'm certainly one of the most biased parties that could be receiving the opportunity to play this game nearly 3 weeks before it comes out. As a kid, 3D platformers were my bread and butter, and Spongebob titles especially took up a huge chunk of my library. I religiously played every Spongebob title like I did Sonic, and well, that may explain a lot of why my gaming experiences haven't always been the most consistent ones. But I've always held on to the peaks in 3D platforming I got to enjoy, and the Battle for Bikini Bottom and movie game pipeline is one of my most cherished eras of 3D platforming in my life. As an adult, Spongebob platformers punched me in the face in the best way possible. When Rehydrated was announced as a faithful remake of the original Battle for Bikini Bottom, I watched and talked about that game like a hawk, which led me down so many insane paths that are still being unveiled on this YouTube channel today. Cosmic Shake came shortly afterwards, the first original SpongeBob 3D platformer in a decade, and in the moment, it was everything I wanted. Rehydrated was everything I wanted, a true return to form to the kind of SpongeBob game that raised me as a child. I couldn't be happier to see the specific form of SpongeBob video game return to enrich my life as an adult arrested by the 9-to-5 grind. But with some time away from these games, as a YouTube channel that's grown off of covering but also critiquing these games, I couldn't help but look at them in a more nuanced light. Were these truly the games that brought back my childhood with 100% potency? I think we can all agree Rehydrated is a flawed remake, but given the circumstances it was made under, i.e. less than a year and during COVID, it turned out pretty decently for what it was. And Cosmic Shake is a very solid platformer, but if I have to be honest, it doesn't quite capture the expansiveness that the original Battle for Bikini Bottom had. And after replaying a good chunk of it for this video, I realized the primary culprit is the more linear approach to its level design. It's not bad by any means, and it's fun in its own right, but I can't lie. The linear approach just doesn't beat the memories of dropping in downtown Bikini Bottom and a year later realizing that there was a whole sea needle section I'd missed. That's what was truly missing from Cosmic Shake. So in comes Titans of the Tide. At this point, Purple Lamp are absolute veterans with the SpongeBob video game machine, and everything from its design, story, and even gameplay looked to be a step up from what's come before. They even put out a demo for the game that gave us a decent hour of gameplay to dissect, and everything about this looked and felt incredible. Playing SpongeBob and Patrick felt as smooth as ever, especially when it came to playing as both at the same time. But what truly wowed me was the level design. These areas seemed wider in scope, and it felt like you could spend forever walking around exploring everything you could, especially when it came to discovering side quests from characters. But now that I have the game and I've marked my stubby little paws all over it, does all this positive momentum stay intact? Well, yes and no. Hello there, crusty crew. My name is RidersDX, and yes, I'm about to tell you my opinions on SpongeBob SquarePants Titans of the Tide, which I have been playing for almost 3 weeks. A huge thank you to THQ Nordic for always being so supportive and giving me the opportunity to play games early like this. This is the earliest I've ever gotten to play a game, I think ever, so it really had me jazzed. There won't be any specific spoilers in this game, especially anything regarding the story or any characters that might appear throughout it, but I do use footage throughout the whole game beyond just the demo, so keep that in mind. But I'm very mindful with what I decide to show here. But how we're going to do this is that I'm first going to focus on the positives, because there is a lot of positives to go on with this game. But at the same time, since I've had a lot of time to really ferment on a game and really just think about it, I do have a decent size section for negatives, so that's gonna come after that. But you know me, I'm always fair and unbiased in a specific universe. I spent 7 hours trudging through the main campaign before moving on to attempting all the side stuff, but let me just say from the get-go, I had fun. F-U-N fun. There's no need to worry about this being a true for square undercooked flop. If you like 3D platformers and especially SpongeBob ones, Titans of the Tide delivers a solid experience. It is every bit as good as Cosmic Shake. It takes everything that game built up and just adds to it, aside from removing maybe 1 or 2 moves. The demo really gave off this vibe that the level design would be more open compared to Cosmic Shake, especially with that first section of Goldfish Island. And I can say the actual game does have some more areas like that, but also some more of the linear sort of fare from Cosmic Shake, and the ratio increases more towards that end as you progress through the game. But what I will say is that not only are the open sections really fun here, but the linear sections I'd still argue are better and more interesting compared to Cosmic Shake, and there's a few different reasons for that. One would be the level design. No matter if it's open or linear, there's just more interesting stuff to do here overall. I thought the alternating lamp system of Neptune's Palace, while a little little headache inducing at times, was really creative. And the thing about each of these levels introducing gimmicks like this is that they don't just go away after the world, they reappear throughout the rest of the game, though maybe not at the same potency. And that really helps with establishing a sense of progression as you get to the end. Another thing is the gameplay. When I replayed Cosmic Shake, it missed a little bit of that hard to describe momentum that the original Valve Bikini Bottom movie game were praised for. It's hard to pinpoint because on the surface, these are all generic 3D platformers, but something about the feel of SpongeBob in those classic games felt so good, and that gameplay is what got people so interested in speedrunning BFBB in the first place. And while Rehydrate and Cosmic Shake tried to replicate this, they fell short in my eyes. So instead of trying to copy even more of what those games did, Titans sort of went for something a little more interesting. The first point being 2 characters that you can switch between at any point. Since you have both SpongeBob and Patrick, this game has many more mechanics to play with compared to Cosmic Shake, especially since you can switch between them on a whim. And you will often be doing just that, as there's multiple platforming challenges here where you literally need to switch between SpongeBob and Patrick mid-air, sometimes even when you're sliding. The game's core mechanics seep into every part of this game and it just feels so uniform and intuitive here. This is by far the most impressive part about Titans of the Tide. It has never felt better to control SpongeBob in a video game. This is my favorite SpongeBob game based on gameplay, and that's saying a lot coming from a Valve Bikini Bottom truther, but this is my new truth and I have to live with it. Purple Lamp finally nailed the feel of a SpongeBob game, and that's a surprise I am so happy to have here. These are truly the 2 cornerstones of Titans that make it the fun experience it is. But beyond that, there's plenty of other things I really enjoyed about this game. The hub world is a really cool original take on the concept. Well, for SpongeBob anyway. I know people are immediately going to think of Galaxy or Odyssey, but I genuinely really like the Krabby Patty ship where the base of operations happen. It's not the biggest hub world and there isn't a mountain full of secrets to uncover, but it's cool seeing the ship populate as you progress through the game and seeing all the characters in such a closed space. Because what's always made SpongeBob games so appealing to me is being able to immerse myself in the universe of the show, and this hub world really understood that. The bosses in particular are really well done here. They share that typical structure of waiting till the boss is vulnerable and attacking, but the way you have to maneuver around these attacks varies so much, especially when you get to the point where you are constantly switching between SpongeBob and Patrick to avoid certain attacks, which always feels so fresh. I didn't feel like any of the bosses were a waste of time, which is something I couldn't say about every single boss in Cosmic Shake. I'm looking at you, Pearl. In fact, even the combat feels that much more fresh here compared to Cosmic Shake. When replaying the game, I was realizing how monotonous that combat could feel. It can get to that point here as well in Titans, but it happens way less because just having SpongeBob and Patrick at your disposal gives you some options as to how you can tackle waves of enemies, and it feels more fun thanks to that. I can say without a shadow of a doubt that all this alone helps Titans of the Tide eclipse Cosmic Shake for me. Purple Lamp truly nailed the gameplay this time around, and to be honest, I finished the game wanting so much more, for better and worse. Now that I've made it abundantly clear that I am a fan of this game and I think it's Purple Lamp's best effort when it comes to SpongeBob games, there are a few things here that I'm definitely not a fan of. I wanted more of the game to be like Goldfish Island, where you got to interact with SpongeBob's friends through side quests more frequently as you progress through the story. I still remember playing that demo and being so delighted to see people like Mrs. Puff and Squidward with their own side plots going on that I could be a part of. It was such a great step that I really didn't appreciate in the moment. It's not like that doesn't happen again, but because of how the game's story progresses, that kind of stuff happens less and less, and the latter half of the game really feels more like what Cosmic Shake was doing rather than this new model they had implemented in Goldfish Island. The one exception is Larry though, who is there and present in all these worlds of his races for some unforsaken reason. Like I said, the more linear design was still very good and better than Cosmic Shake, but man, Goldfish Island really helped me see the potential this game had, and I'm disappointed the rest of the game wasn't designed in the same way. The closest the game comes to this is probably the beginning of Jellyfish Fields, but that definitely wasn't done to the same extent. I mentioned that a big reason this was probably done was due to the progression of the story. What I'll say about the plot here is that it's fine and the writing is good. The Dutchman and Neptune fighting each other is a setup that makes sense for a video game, but because of how the story progresses, we had to have a world-to-world outline similar to Cosmic Shake and the movie game rather than being able to jump into almost any world you wanted in Valve Bikini Bottom. And after playing this game and seeing the ways it tackled the more open areas, I really wish this game went for that BFBB model, because then it would have been way easier to have all SpongeBob's friends littered throughout these worlds, and that's what was really missing for me outside outside Goldfish Island. In fact, I think I would have rather spent more time in the hub world rather than Jellyfish Fields, where only one other character is largely present besides SpongeBob and Patrick. All this isn't a deal breaker, but it is disappointing that the game started off in such a good direction and really just didn't do that again for the rest of it. I also don't know about you all, but the world doesn't have to be at the brink of ending in a SpongeBob game. It's not like this is Mario or Sonic where they're always saving the world. Sometimes SpongeBob just goes to the Krusty Krab to work. I'm not saying we need to rid the game of any tension and become the Patrick Star game, but more room for that happy-go-lucky feel SpongeBob would really benefit the world building for a game in this franchise specifically. And I know it's annoying to constantly go back to BFBB, but really, who else did it better? The game had a perfect setup where something serious was going on, but there was still room to write the characters in situations you would typically see on the show. That about sums up my biggest critique when it comes to this game. However, there is one other aspect I want to touch on, and I know something I say here is going to piss off Sheriff the Great, but I'm ready to speak my truth, which is the fact that the music isn't particularly memorable for me, which I'm really sad about. I can't remember one single track in this game after playing through the whole thing, except maybe the sliding music, but it's because I was so heavily disappointed by it. It's this smooth jazz track, which isn't actually bad by any means, but it is horribly mismatched with sliding, which is supposed to be one of the most exciting parts of the game. I'm sorry, but to this day, nothing tops that amazing sliding track in BFBB. I still can't get over how amazing it was to listen to that guitar riff over and over again in Sand Mountain, but even in the final level, the sliding music is so solemn and calm, and it doesn't amp up the intensity I think the game is calling for, especially at the end. The rest of the soundtrack has this lo-fi and almost eerie feel to it, which, to be fair, does fit the scary ghostly theme they have going on here, but it honestly just bored me, and it was literally background music and nothing else for me in this game. I wasn't even that impressed with Cosmic Shake's music in the time, but now I find myself missing the Wild West version of Jellyfish Fields or the Hollywood sounds of Downtown Bikini Bottom. Titan's soundtrack just doesn't live up. Okay, I think I'm done being a hater. It also could just be the case of I have to play the game again and really just listen to the music, and maybe I'll grow to like it a lot more as I keep playing it, but based on my first impressions, there was nothing to latch on here for me. I would be really curious to learn what the development cycle for this game was like, because Purple Lamp has been busy. Cosmic Shake came out not too long ago, and they put out Epic Mickey Rebrush last year. That's why I'm not fully convinced they had an optimal amount of time and resources to dedicate to this game, and why I think maybe perhaps they started off with the amazing Goldfish Island, but then had to speed things up near the end of the game. But despite my critiques and yearnings for Titans, I still had an awesome time playing this. The gameplay is the true star here, and that is the best case scenario for any video game. This is what I'm really proud of Purple Lamp for. The gameplay is going to make this an insanely fun game to replay, and I honestly wouldn't mind seeing them just copy and paste what they have here into the next title. Sure, the game does have a lot of missed potential, but every time Purple Lamp comes to the table, they bring something better than the last, and that makes me really optimistic about what SpongeBob games could become in the future. It's not been instantaneous, let me tell you. Like any other developer, Purple Lamp still has a lot that they can learn. But I'm really happy with the final product here, and it makes me so much more excited for what's going to come in the future from them, because I don't see them stopping anytime soon. It looks like they really come to like a nice agreement with Nickelodeon, THQ Nordic in particular. So I hope to see more from Purple Lamp in SpongeBob in the future, and I hope to see them like really step out of their comfort zone, because I fully believe that Times of the Tide gameplay wise is the most polished form of the SpongeBob 3D platformer that we've ever seen yet. And while I would really love to see Purple Lamp continue to go in that direction, give us more games like this, I really would love to see them just kind of go crazy. Just go a little insane here and there and give us something that we wouldn't expect. So I'm ready to see Purple Lamp really like stretch their fingers and surprise us. So I don't know, I'll have to cook a little bit on that, on what I actually want to see from them in the future, because they've done 3 platformers for SpongeBob at this point. I know one of them's a remake, so maybe 2 technically. But yeah, I really want to see Purple Lamp get crazy and wild. But anyway, let me know your thoughts about Times of the Tide in the comment section below. Hopefully by the time you watch this video, you would have at least had gone to try it. I know this is coming out the day before it comes out, so if you're watching this the day before the game comes out, then well, it's not that long now, but just know that you are in for a good treat. And if you do get to play the game, come back here and tell me what you thought about it, because I'd be really curious to hear what everyone else's opinions on this are. It's been such an honor to get to play this game and really get to formulate a well thought out opinion on it before it comes out. It really does make me feel like a big shot YouTuber. So thank you again to THQ Nordic and Purple Lamp Studios, and I hope you all don't find my comments like too rude or anything like that. I try to be fair, you know, I try to be fair and constructive and not be a hater, because if there's any company I really do not want to be a hater for, it is Purple Lamp Studios. You all have done so much for me and really changed my life in so many ways, and you know, we gotta give you your flowers. We gotta give the flowers, but then we gotta take some of them back if you do some things wrong. So that's what I hope this video is to you all. But anyway, feel free to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you want more content about Titans of the Tide and, you know, any other 3D platformers I might be interested in the future. But alright, y'all, thank you so much. This is Riders, riding out. What should we do with the Flying Dutchman? What should we do with the Flying Dutchman?